Do you enjoy these things? Maybe enjoy is the wrong word.
As I get older, I find it more difficult to articulate the process in a way that's interesting, because I'm trying to. It's sort of running counter to what I'm trying to do as I continue to work, which is to be more instinctual and not to analyze so much, and so to then have to kind of sit down and articulate why I made certain decisions. It runs counter to how I make those decisions. So it's just an odd experience.
Well, you could always take the David Lynch approach and not explain anything, and just refer to intuition.
That's very difficult to do if you're making movies on a certain scale. You know, I mean, it really is. For the program, I pulled a quote. Instead of doing a director's statement, I pulled a quote from the director, Joseph Losey, about this issue. And he sort of talks about how he thinks he would do better work if he didn't have to talk about it, but he also said, you'd be stupid if you didn't think that you needed to talk about it. And he says, they've even got Antonioni doing it now. So, you know, and look, in this case, what's great about talking in this case is that, frankly, most of the questions aren't about me so much, it's about the subject. And this is a subject that I find fascinating and that I do like to talk about, and that was fascinating to research and interesting to work on. So at least I feel like in this case, people aren't asking me about me all the time.
My next question was going to be about you.
Okay, well.
Is that okay?
Try it.
Try it. Why did you want to become a director?
That didn't feel like a choice. We were just talking about this at lunch. We were talking about creativity, the process of creativity, and how difficult it is to define exactly. And I just said, you know, in response to Lawrence sort of asking a similar question, I said it didn't seem like a choice. I was presented with a series of opportunities that I didn't have to think about. You know, my father loved movies. That's where I got the bug from. He was just a complete cinema junkie. And so I saw a lot of films when I was young, and happened when I was 13 years old to get access to some film equipment. And it just didn't seem like a choice. It felt like, of course I want to do this. So, you know, I don't know how to describe my motivation. I didn't feel like I made a decision.
How surprised were you when Sex and Lies got selected for Cannes in '89?
Very, and I'll tell you why. It's another example of the kind of weird luck that I've had. We were supposed to be in the director's fortnight. There was a Dennis Hopper film called Backtrack that was supposed to be in competition that pulled out at the last moment. And the competition sort of stole us from the director's fortnight. We were told, our French distributor was told in, you know, pretty clear terms, this is unusual, we like this film, but you should be aware it's not really going to make much of an impression at the festival. You know, don't get too excited. Then 2 weeks before the festival started, Francis Coppola decided not to be the head of the jury, and when Wim Wenders was chosen to be the head of the jury, and Wim turned out to be a big supporter of the film. So in about a 4 to 6 week period, we went from being in director's fortnight, Francis Coppola head of the jury, to being in competition, Wim Wenders head of the jury, and suddenly everything changes. So it's hard to sort of believe that I would never sit here and tell you that happened all because of the film. Like, some other things happened that turned out to be very advantageous for us, but I had nothing to do with them.
No, I mean, it was one of the things I hear the most from from Sidney Lumet to David Lynch and now to you is actually luck.
Yeah, it's really true, and the point is to make sure that you're sort of standing in the right spot when it lands, and to recognize it for what it is. I think that's really crucial, and part of I don't feel as innately talented as a lot of other people, but what I can do and what I have done is to work hard. I know that I'm willing to, I'll go head to head with anybody in terms of hours in a week that I'm willing to work. That I'll take any challenge. That's because I feel there are other people that are just more naturally gifted and I have to work harder.
I'm going to jump all over the place, and we will talk about Contagion, so I'm not... before Out of Sight came out and sort of gave you some box office clout after sort of 5 years of critically appraised, but necessarily...
9 years of...
Well, it was
89 to 98.
Well, actually, did you at any point consider dropping it, giving up, saying... I mean, your statement at Cannes is on the way, it's all the way except the other one.
Yeah.
Was starting to look like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. No, I didn't feel like stopping, but a couple of things were going on. I needed to transition out of a trajectory that I recognized as not being good for me creatively, which was I look at the first 4 films and I completely separate them out from everything, that followed. That I made a very conscious decision to resist what I saw as a kind of disturbing formalist trend in my work. I felt the films were getting worse because of this. Too much analysis, too hermetically sealed. They were becoming sort of lifeless to me. And so I made a very conscious effort to break out of that. Doing the book on Richard Lester was part of that process. And so Schizopolis, Grey's Anatomy, was kind of this attempt to blow things up a little bit. And Out of Sight was appealing to me because I looked around and I thought, half of this business is off limits to me. The sort of the studio side of it, I can't really get arrested. This piece of material was available. A lot of people were approached by the producers, Michael Schamberg and Stacey Scher from Contagion. I was literally like the last guy standing. I mean, the list of people that they went to who said no is really long. And I felt, I know how to do this movie. I think George is absolutely a movie star. And I waited until everyone said no, and then I jumped in. And that was a really important film for me. It's still, I think, one of the least flawed movies that I've made. But there was a lot of self-imposed pressure to get it right, because I knew if I fuck this up, I'm in real trouble. I don't have the art house world and I don't have the studio world. But I had to put myself in a mind frame on the set every day as though I was making Schizopolis, and that I could do whatever I wanted. So that was a watershed film for me.
How important, this is a ridiculous question, how important has your relationship with Clooney been over the years?
Huge. I mean, I think both of us would tell you that meeting at that time on that movie was, I don't know what my career would be. I honestly don't. We both needed what the other person had. And that's why I think we ended up as partners for a while. There was just something, we liked the same kind of movies, we have the same kind of work ethic. It was just, again, the right place at the right time. And that's, God, we made 6 movies together.
How much was this, sincerely, the Oceans 1, 2, and 3, one for us, one for the studio?
I think that's an idea that someone who doesn't make films would come up with. And certainly no one who knows me would ever characterize me that way. They're all for me. You know, I like making those movies. Those movies are good for me. It's good for me to be, it's good for me to have opportunities to be playful and not serious. And they also visually give me the opportunity to do things that I can't do in any other film because it wouldn't be appropriate. So I can't work for 2 years on something that isn't for me. Like I couldn't do it, you know. But every once in a while something comes along that I like, that I would get in line to go see, that happens to also have commercial potential. So that was good luck for me.
The fact that you're also your own director of photography on most of them, if not all of them, isn't that just really hard work?
It seems organic to me. You know, it doesn't seem to be an extra thing to do to me. I guess because I have pretty clear ideas of what I want to see and what I want it to look like. And that's how I started. I mean, I shot all my short films, and the sort of 11 years after Sex Lies, prior to Traffic, of working with other cinematographers, I took advantage of them and sort of sucked their brains as much as I could and asked a lot of questions and never left the set to try and build up enough of a skill set to do it myself. It's just one less conversation I have to have, one less layer of interpretation for me, and it enables me to move quickly, which I like. I think you ask any of the actors, you know, when they show up on the set in the morning, they work until they leave. There's no waiting around. It's fast. And that, I trade that momentum for the fact that I'm not Emmanuel Lubezki or Harris Savides. Like those guys are on another level, you know, but I'm quick and cheap. Really cheap.
What does producing give you that you don't get just from directing?
Not a lot. That's why I got out of it. I hated it. There are a couple of things that I'm involved with, and some of them were hangovers from stuff that started during the period of Section 8 and just never got done. Or, you know, in the case of Solitary Man, you know, Brian Koppelman and David Levine had written Oceans. Brian gave me the script, and I said, you know, you should send this to Michael Douglas. It's a great part for him. And Brian said, well, would you send it to him? And I said, yeah, I'll send it to him. And I sent it to Michael, and Michael said yes. And then Brian and David called me and said, you can't just walk away from this thing. You know, won't you be involved? And I said, you know, okay. I don't enjoy it. It's a terrible job. You know, the phone calls are always bad. I don't want to do that anymore.
When you were nominated for Traffic and Erin Brockovich, did you want to win for one rather than the other?
Well, here's what I discovered the year of Sex Lies, when the screenplay was nominated. And I had my attitude about the awards was, well, they're as defined by the people they haven't recognized as much as they are the people that they have recognized. A lot of my favorite filmmakers either were never nominated or never won. So I kind of sort of, you know, it was created to you know, build publicity for movies. That's why it came into existence. And I kind of looked at it that way. And I went to the ceremony, you know, feeling sort of neutral about it. And let me tell you what happens. The minute they start to read those names, I don't care who you are, you want to get up there. It was shocking. Like, it disturbed me, that sensation of sitting there and suddenly Jane Fonda's reading the names and you're like, shit, I want to get up there. It really bothered me that had happened. So the good news was that year, with the dual nominations, the consensus amongst everyone, myself included, is it's impossible for me to win. I would split whatever votes I'm going to get are going to be split. Like, that it's just not possible. It's going to be Ang or Ridley. and that I was fine with that. And I was loaded when that category came up. I'd been going out to the lobby to get drinks all night because I knew I'm not going to have to get up there and say anything. And I'd watched 4 of my friends get up there: Stephen Marioni, Benicio, Julia Roberts, and Steve Gaghan. And I was happy. I was really happy. And I was also pretty loaded. And so it was kind of a weird evening.
Time is running out. Okay. In all this time, there's much talk of you quitting and going off to paint. But what have you learned? And incorporating that, what is it that you love about cinema?
Well, what I can answer those both in a way. What I love about cinema specifically is that you never do stop learning. And what I need to do is just take a little break so that I can reassess my approach and see if there's another way to look at this. I think there's so many unique things about this specific art form. And one of the reasons when Scott Burns proposed this idea for Contagion that I responded so immediately was, this is the kind of thing that cinema does better than any other form. If you're going to tell a story like this, there's just no better way to do it than to make a movie about it. It's better than prose, it's better than a play, it's better than an interpretive dance. This is exactly the kind of stuff that cinema does. It immerses you. It can move with incredible dexterity amongst a variety of locations. It can show you a sort of panoply of characters. This was just great movie material to me. And when you go to a movie, you want to be taken into a world. You want to be, you know what I mean? And the more complete it is, the more enjoyable or the more compelling the experience is. So, look, it was without question the most dominant art form of the 20th century. We'll see what happens, in this millennia. But, I continue to be fascinated by it. It's editing especially it's like never boring.
Do you edit on Avid? No advertising here, but you Avid or Final Cut?
Avid.
Okay, we're on the same page on that one. Actually, the subjectivity, because editors aren't supposed to go on set. You direct your photography, you're the director, and some of the time you're editing. Don't you ever feel that you're too close to it?
Well, I don't. I hope I am too close to it, and certainly, I am part of the positive aspect of having a core group of people that I work with from film to film, especially with somebody like Greg Jacobs, who's my producer and also my first assistant director. So who's a filmmaker in his own right. I get a lot of, and I create an environment. There's a lot of, nobody's shy about telling me when they think something's not working. I guarantee you, I get a lot of feedback from people, but I think that I think that intimacy is a good thing for the film. The one thing that I'm glad I haven't been doing lately is writing. That I wrote as a way of getting in to the business, but I'm not a writer, and it took me a while to realize that. And when I did, my work got better immediately. I like working with writers. I wrote like a director when I look back on it.
Someone who's writing a screenplay they wanted to direct.
Well, it's more, no, it's more, my ability to sort of, my abilities were sort of okay on a storytelling level, like this needs to happen now, or something needs to happen now, or this thing that happens here should happen down there. That I feel, good at. The ability to sort of be a ventriloquist and truly create a character whose consciousness is different from mine, I'm not skilled at that. I'm really not. And when I've worked with people who are, and I know the difference. And so it's much more fun for me to sit in a room with Scott, work on the story, and have him write it. That's the ideal situation, the best use of me.
That's actually your whole philosophy is the best use of yourself and the people around you.
Yeah, and that takes some time to figure out.
Steven Soderbergh, 10, 9. Warner are very efficient. I would
Yes,
place
we
here.
were.
Very efficient. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.